This video is sponsored by Bad Translations. Stick around to find out how they massacred our boy this time.
Signori e signori mutanti, ho il piacere di presentarvi.
C'est impossible. Ti chiamerei a essere robot.
Cortex, lees bij.
If it isn't Crash Bandicoot.
There's little doubt in the greater gaming community that Crash Team Racing is one of the greatest racing games of all time, but does its localization match that same quality? Join me now as I explore more very real translations of yet another very fictional Bandicoot adventure. Despite its title, CTR is a game that has very little team play, so it doesn't come as too much of a surprise that the game received a more standard title in Japan, in Crash Bandicoot Racing, CBR for short. But if you think I'm only looking at two versions of this game, you are sorely mistaken, as there's also localizations into French, Italian, Spanish, German, and, for the first time in the series, Dutch. But that's not all. In other European regions where game localizations were probably not as lucrative, players got manual translations at the very least, including Portuguese, Finnish, Swedish, Danish, Greek, and now also for the first time, Norwegian. With more London-based dubbing productions and context-lacking instruction manual translations, we're sure to find a couple of hidden gems to be entertained by. And where better to start than the racetracks? After all, they're really the backbone of CTR. Previous Crash games kept the level names in English or Japanese only, so seeing them translated to the likes of French or Dutch feels quite novel. The vast majority of translations are fairly close to the original, or, in the case of Japanese, change the naming focus to a different set piece in the level without deviating too starkly, resulting in relatively unremarkable level name sets for Coco Park, Tiger Temple, Dragon Mines, Nitro Court, Parking Lot, Turbo Track, and the North Bowl. But before I continue, a little disclaimer regarding the font you see in the earlier Crash games. It unfortunately doesn't support language-specific letters and diacritics, and if you're wondering what those are, they're your as, your cds, your circumflexes, your SZs, as well as your Ös, your Ös, and your Ös. This has been the case for the trilogy as well, but given how little text those had, it only really stood out when choosing between Espagnol or Francais. When they don't just flat out ignore these letters by substituting them with the base letter, you come across some workarounds, such as substituting the German umlauts with the base vowel plus E cluster. That's a bit clunky and sadly gives off the strong suspicion that localization is really just an afterthought. The only special characters taken into account in CTR are this really pathetic attempt at using an apostrophe in place of an accent over the preceding vowel in Italian, and the ñ in Spanish. Which leads me to the topic of Dingo Canyon. Despite how much canyon is a Spanish word in origin, the Spanish spelling with the ñ has never ever been established in German, for as long as I have lived anyway. And as much as it pains my back for me to say it, I have been around since before CTR was even made. Conversely, I've got no clue what the German translator did here. Maybe he just copied his Spanish colleague's homework and forgot to change a detail so it's not obvious. At least in my heart, the name Speedy Armadillo Warning makes up for this typo. The Japanese title would go on to save an otherwise painfully dull set of pretty straightforward translations for Skull Rock, aka Large Stone of Cortex, Papus Pyramid, aka Man-Eating Flower Temple, Cortex Castle, aka Spider Castle, Polar Pass, aka Startled by Frozen Papa Bear, love that one, keep this in mind by the way, this will come back around later, and Crash Cove, aka Great Roaring in Tasmania. That last one's not only a great introductory level name, but also the track most heavily associated with the first hub world, and Sanity Beach, which has been the focus of some hilarious translations with its appearance as the first level of Crash 1. Here in CTR, French calls it a generic Sun Beach, as does Japanese referring to it as the Southern Island Area. Italian's Spiaggia delle Foglie is simply Beach of Madness, and German's Irrer Strand literally just means crazy beach, but could also be misconstrued as slang in the vein of, dude, there's a crazy beach over there. It's got water and sand, it's coarse and gets everywhere, etc, etc. The other hub areas, however, are pretty much one-to-one, with only Japanese deviating a bit from the original names. The exception is Gemstone Valley, renamed to the Spacelander area, given that Oxide spaceship is located here. And since Gemstone Valley is at least mentioned in the manual, it has a couple of additional translations, though they're all quite literal. That's nothing crazy, but a nice little bit of fun trivia for you, just because I really like ya. Speaking of, time for a trivia pit stop. Did you know that Japanese CTR replaced many of the character icons? This is what the originals look like, and these are the Japanese designs. I especially like Fake Crash over here. And back on the main road. A few level names have puzzled me as I explored the different languages. Slide Colosseum has become Mobile Colosseum in Italian, as if the Colosseum itself were moving. Hot Air Skyway has become simply Hot Route in Spanish, basically only making it half of what the name's supposed to convey. Ruse Tubes was translated a bit too literally as Ruse Vials or Beakers, probably because the translator lacked context and saw the word from the angle of a test tube instead of the sort of tunnel that it really is. And Sewer Speedway's name of Pista Cloaca has garnered a lot of attention among Italian CTR players. Not only is cloaca regarded as an extremely uncommon and more vulgar word, used to describe many different kinds of disgusting places as opposed to the standard word for sewer, fogna, but it also became so iconic that it served as the naming inspiration for an entire Italian CTR community, La Cloaca di CTR. Man, talk about a cultural impact. But first, time for a pit stop. Did you know that the Japanese version has a difficulty ranking for every track in the form of Wumpa Fruit icons from 1 to 5? Now you do! And here's a little overview of how each track was ranked. And I gotta say, it's pretty spot on. And with that, back on the main road. And that road being Rocky Road, as its translation into French took the phrase's metaphorical meaning and spelled it out clean as day in Chemin Ardu, meaning arduous path. Can't help but feel they kinda didn't understand the assignment, since the name doesn't describe the level very well. That is unless you're trying to beat the Crystal Challenge with ice physics, in which case your path is absolutely of the arduous variety. Another arena level in this game is known as Wild Chaos, and if you think it isn't, think again. That's the Dutch name for Rampage Ruins. Yeah, that's definitely off, but also definitely hilarious enough to gain the Peter seal of approval. And I totally get that Blizzard Bluff may be tricky to translate well, but Ráfaga Bluff ain't it, since Ráfaga refers to a gust of wind, not snow. On the other hand, Colle Tempesta, meaning Tempest Hills, I really like. Well done. As a side note, my picks for German titles here would have been Schneesturmstrecke with a little tongue-twisting twang, or Schneesturmflaute, which would be slightly more accurate to the English name, but neither of these would fit the character limit for track names, so I gotta drop my hypothetical translations on your heads instead. Sorry. And now, time for the thing. I'm sure lots of people know, but Japanese Crash games include secret FMVs of people in Crash Bandicoot costumes going through all kinds of shenanigans, with the one for CTR appropriately covering an epic race between fake Crash and non-fake Crash. And with that knowledge, back to the main path, where Mystery Caves has two fun variants. I just enjoy Miracle Grottos for some reason. It's not a direct translation, but still has some whimsy about it that I can't fully describe. And then the Japanese Turtle Turtle Steel Mill has another whimsy to it that'd be superfluous to describe. It's simply the perfect representative of how Japanese level names often turn out. And other times level translations turn out so literal that they transcend their badness completely and become hilariously iconic. Hey, look at here! In Italian, Tiny Arena was just called Arena Piccola, meaning small arena. That could almost secretly be a clever joke considering it's actually the longest track in the game. It's also named after Tiny Tiger, but thankfully the character was spared from the mistranslation treatment. Hey, look here. In German, Tiny Arena was just called Kleine Arena, meaning small arena. That could almost secretly be a clever joke, considering it's actually the longest track in the game. It's also named after Tiny Tiger, but thankfully the character was spared from mistranslation. Whomst is responsible for this? Well, sadly I can only blame Britta Kuhnen, since her name is the only German one in the localization credits. I mean, that's still better than having no localization credits at all. I'm looking at you, Crash 2. The side effect of this very literal treatment is that German Tiny refers to himself as Tiger instead. So instead of
Tiny squash puny cars, Tiny win.
he says,
Tiger zerquetscht Autos, Tiger gewinnt.
and Tiny isn't the only one who drew the short straw. Britta Kuhnen's hand may in fact have only contained short straws, which was also serving entropy, dingodile, nitrous oxide, and a pinstripe. The latter of whom was also translated literally in Nadelstreifen, which is at least the correct word to refer to his kind of suit, but sounds odd as hell for a name. The other three got their name spellings localized to align with the German translations of the words they're punning on. So, Dingodil from Krokodil, and Entropy from Entropie. What really ruins my road, or doubts my ruin if you will, is that these specific name variants and spellings weren't present in Crash 3, so now me and you have to come to terms with this inconsistency. Likewise, oxide is just Oxid in German, which is also reflected in the German name of Oxide Station. Penta Penguin and Fake Crash are off the hook with their translated names though, since they simply don't bother me for reasons I don't feel like rationalizing. The last level names experienced a bit of a switcheroo, as the track Engine Labs was named Super Acceleration Tunnel in Japanese, and then the arena level Lab Basement was just named Engine Labs instead. Hope you're not confused, because the Japanese version isn't quite done yet. This is a time relic, but here it's a trophy. This is a trophy, but here it's a cup. This is a cup, but here it's a challenge. And this is a challenge, but here it's a showdown. In other languages, CTR tokens are known as chips, coins, and rewards, as well as medals, which is what relics are in the Swedish manual, and souvenirs, which is what relics are in the Norwegian manual. Good to be clear. French is an especially egregious case of naming inconsistency when looking at gems, which are called precious stones in the Crash 1 manual,
Pierre précieuse,
diamonds in Crash 2,
diamant,
gems in Crash 3,
gemme,
and now jewels in CTR.
joyau.
Absolute state of this. But before we carry on, time for the CTR has 4 racing cups you can compete in through the arcade mode. The Wumpa, Crystal, Nitro, and Crash cups. But specifically in the Japanese version, they received completely different names. The Drift Challenge, Turbo Challenge, Jump Special, and Super Technical. Now I'm sure you might be wondering why they're called that. Anyway, if the tracks are the backbone of CTR, then the characters are the heart and soul of the game. Their technical presentation is once again superb, with detailed and language-specific lip-synced animations, even for all European languages. I was even told that the Aku Aku model used for the Japanese hint system in prior games was repurposed for the mask hints in the adventure mode. In fact, the masks even use a clever algorithm that automatically syncs their lips to the audio, which can be wonderfully seen through the power of mods.
Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style.
He's still not done. What the fuck are we doing?
Now the voice actors from prior games reprise their roles.
Welcome to the Adventure Arena.
Welcome to the Adventure Arena.
おー、よく来たな。
やっと来たか。いいか。
Which does mean there was double casting among the European actors, some of whom tried to make the voices distinct.
Bienvenue à l'arène de l'aventure.
Bienvenue à l'arène de l'aventure.
Bienvenido al circuito de la aventura.
Bienvenido al circuito de la aventura.
And some of whom really didn't.
Willkommen zur Abenteuerarena. Willkommen zur Abenteuerarena.
Benvenuto nell'arena dell'avventura. Benvenuto nell'arena dell'avventura.
My personal highlight is our newcomer Dutch, though. Trust me, you are not prepared for what you're about to hear.
Welkom in de avontuurarena. Je kunt hier rondrijden en je rijvaardigheid verbeteren. Om bij een racebaan te komen moet je op een warpplaats rijden met een actieve warp-raffle.
Sadly, I couldn't find anything about the Dutch voice cast whatsoever, so if anyone has more information about who to credit for this hysterical performance, by all means leave a comment. Actors being multicast to a ludicrous degree gets apparent in games like CTR, with a big ensemble cast of characters. Think of Brendan O'Brien, who famously voiced all characters in Crash 1 and still voiced Engine, Tiny and Pinstripe here. Most European dubs have their own Brendan O'Brien at home. Like who else but Michael the German voice Hülsmann? Responsible for Cortex,
Die Trophäe ist mein!
Pinstripe,
So, du hast mich zurecht besiegt.
Entropy
Ich kann nicht glauben, dass du meine Bestzeit geschlagen hast.
and Oxide.
Ich verliere nie! Wie peinlich!
For the Spanish dub, Luis Soto is pulling quintuple duty with Aku Aku,
Aquí podrás viajar y practicar tu destreza.
Uka Uka,
En esta pantalla guardas y cargas el juego.
Papu Papu,
Papu estar cansado de ver tortugas en carrera.
Pinstripe,
Oye, me has ganado y limpiamente.
and Dingodile.
Venga, tira.
Lastly, we got the ridiculous set of rules by Andrea Piovan with Crash, Engine,
Un brindisi.
Dingodile,
Hey baby!
Sì.
Entropy,
Hai battuto uno dei miei record. Sei più veloce del previsto.
Oxide,
Sono io, Nitro-Fueled, il più veloce pilota della galassia.
and Fake Crash.
Sì. Yeah.
Sadly, I'm lacking concrete information on French and Dutch dubbings, so I can't take this any further. At the end of the day, the general consensus of the community is that the voice acting in the PAL dubs is subpar. Lest we forget, the localization was produced in London. And just to be completely clear, this does not mean that they picked a random James Johnson off the street to voice Komodo Joe in French because he had passing grades in Français back in school. The voice actors' names should have made that obvious already. But London in the 90s probably didn't even have the most massive pool of foreign language voice actors for video games, which would explain the Italian sextet of Piovan. Now time for a final trivia pit stop. Did you know that in the Japanese version you're locked out of attempting any CTR token challenges until you unlock the Gem Cup door in Gemstone Valley? I sure fucking didn't, until I recorded footage for this video. In any case, back en route to finally talk about the actual characters themselves. What about their characterization? Anything noteworthy? Well, the most we really have on that front is the boss cutscenes and the character epilogues. Internationally, Oxide returns to his home planet, gets therapy, and then ends up in a horrifying unicycle accident. While Japan-nationally, he goes on to become essentially a space cop and gives out speeding tickets. So, you know, that's the sort of difference we're talking here. In his Japanese dialogue, he also uses the first-person pronoun ore-sama, which emphasizes his condescending personality and arrogance even further.
Ore-sama-chan wa Nitro-Fueled Oxide. この銀河宇宙最速のレーサーだ。ブレブレブレ
And during the cutscenes before the race against him in the J version, he reiterates the entire plan to turn Earth into a parking lot in grand detail, which simply takes forever. Komodo Joe's original epilogue is a combination of entrepreneurship, laundering, and incarceration, whereas JP is about him performing sword acrobatics with his brother Mo, leading to a deal to sell knife sets via home shopping channels. Anybody remember those? Unsurprisingly, his snaky way of speaking is also universal.
Así que has ganado a todos en estas pistas, eh?
Je bent toch niet zo langzaam. Zo, je verraste me.
そんなに遅くはねえようだ。
Coco developing a dating platform in the magical year of 1999 was changed to a shopping platform instead. According to Wikipedia anyway, her French voice actress is Framboise Gourmandi in CTR. But Bandipedia doesn't want to allow that information on its site because Wikipedia is unreliable, and now you get to suffer with me for that.
Youpi! Allez!
In any case, Japanese Coco's shop was so successful, she's now considering writing a book about her brother of all people. Wait a minute, isn't Crash's international epilogue about him selling his life story, albeit to a movie studio? Why yes it is. Maybe Japanese Coco's book wound up being the template for it. Well, at the end of the day, Crash would just relax and sleep on the beachside when his Japanese epilogue actually picks up. In it, Carlos dreams about getting it on with them trophy girls. Guys only want one thing, and it's fucking disgusting. This is him. This is Guy. But since they were brought up, what happened to the trophy girls? Isabella became an actress in Baywaters, obviously a Baywatch reference, Spanish's Los Vigilantes de la Bahía, and French's Alerte à ma lubie take inspiration from the Baywatch titles in their respective countries, but oopsie oopsie, Italian's Le Acque della Baia is just a literal translation, meaning the waters of the bay. That's minus points right there. Isabella's Japanese ending sees her being sick of handing out trophies and becoming a racer herself. You go girl. Hang on, that's exactly what Amy's international epilogue is. What's it in Japanese then? She's set to become an actress in Tiny's movie? Alright, so Isabella and Amy basically swap around their future careers of actress and racer, depending on the version of the game. Neat. But indeed, instead of becoming a Beverly Hills fitness icon, Japanese Small Tiger would become an action film star, who keeps flubbing his lines. Honestly, that just seems like a complete retread of Koala Kong's epilogue from Crash 1 with the whole Hollywood actor speech therapy thing. And the acting crew is rounded out by Rue the Slaughterer, who became a stunt driver for action films due to his fearlessness of explosions. The original plan for Ripper Rue was a political career instead, even considering presidency. Somehow, #Rue for Prez feels like a genuine improvement to the current state of things. Also, he speaks! Yeah, I know about the unused English voice lines he had, but in the Japanese version, they actually went through with it, though the dialogue is largely unchanged in meaning. Rue also antagonizes the player by saying last one across the finish line is a rotten brain. But in German, they're an egghead, and in French, they can sign their death warrant. What a nice little through line of character lore and regionally specific adaptations. Let's check on Megumi. Originally, she released her own perfume brand, but in the Japanese version, she's fed up with Cortex constantly asking for her number.
That Megumi refused to give me her number. All I said was she could put bags of ice on my head for the monstrous headaches I get from my massive chrome dome. Females always reject the worthy.
Speaking of, in the original he went back to doing actual science and discovered a new periodic element, with the ill-fated name Cortex Rules the Worldium. En français it's Cortex Grand Chef Dium, while in Italiano they just botched the joke completely.
No, really. I'm elated that thanks to my efforts we were able to protect the Earth. Leaving everything to that citrus-colored marsupial would have left me quite worried. Now I can finally continue my research for the conquering of the Earth. I mean for peace. That's great. You know, Oxide's spaceship was very cool. Maybe I should ask Engine to make something similar for me. You never know when something like that could come in handy.
Engine, meanwhile, is busy sulking over the closure of his car part shop. The international ending reveals the location of the shop in Toledo, Ohio, and the Japanese one specifies its name as Engine's Engines. Predictable, yet genius. He should have cooperated with Pinstripe, who became a car seller in all versions of the epilogue. And if you think he sounds familiar in the Spanish dub, then he absolutely fucking should.
Soy rey de la velocidad y voy a salvar al mundo por un módico precio, claro.
He inherited his voice and Mexican accent directly from Dingodile in the previous game.
¿Qué pasa, colegas? Soy Dingodile.
Funny how both Aussie and Brooklyn accents just become Mexicano here instead. And Dingodile himself would go on to either start a traveling barbecue service or a program to create more hybrid animal mutants. The last trophy girl, Liz, originally posed for Bandy Boy. Naughty naughty. Dog. And Japal Liz is just like,
oh my gosh, I wish I were as cute as Pola and Pura.
Here, let me fix that for you. And done. But what about the little adorable animals? OG Pura was a Siegfried and Roy reference, only to realize he likes running more than racing. Tss, lame. Pola joined an ice cream company and greenlit a bunch of flavors that were localized into German better than the rest of the game. The old universe is one where Pola starts an ice shaping business instead, to free the old frozen Papa Bear. Aww, see? Told you this would come back around. Sadly, Penta Penguin was rudely not even mentioned in Liz's epilogue, let alone receive his own ending. But for the Japanese release he was renamed to Gurin, which is what all penguins were already named in the Crash 2 manual. The last two characters exemplify that certain things are always a constant. Papu Papu will forever be known for his magnificent physique, either as the wrestler Mr. Bad Belly, or as DJ Papu Papu for his famous tummy dance. In Japanese he likes to throw in the word papu at the end of sentences, just as his own little linguistic tick.
Papu papu, ちょっと調子悪かったパプ。お腹減ってるからパプ。朝ごはんもっと食べとけばよかったパプ。N オキサイド、パプパプより早いの知ってるパプ。
But wait, now here's for a fun fact.
Papu not himself today. Maybe Papu not eating a big breakfast.
That was the original. Now here's the French.
Oh, Papu pas bien du tout. Papu pas assez manger girafe.
Nope, this isn't an expression either, it's just Papu revealing what that breakfast consisted of all along. And Entropy will always just go back to tinkering with time travel. Boring. But within CTR, he's most iconic in the role of the Time Trial Ghost Challenge, where he likes to talk smack despite having garbage times himself.
Tu te crois rapide, hein? Voyons si tu peux battre mon meilleur temps sur ce circuit.
Du hältst dich für schnell, was? Mal sehen, ob du meine Bestzeit auf dieser Bahn schlagen kannst.
Ti credi veloce? Beh, vediamo se riesci a battere il mio miglior tempo su questa pista.
¿Te crees rápido, eh? Bueno, a ver si puedes superar mi récord en esta pista, eh?
Denk je dat je snel bent? Eens kijken of je mijn snelste tijd op deze baan kunt verbeteren.
Mada. 全部の記録を抜かれたわけでは nothing.
Oh look, he even does so in the manual as well. You know what that means.
Kaikkihan tietävät, että minä olen nopein. Et voi voittaa minua aika-ajossa.
Alle og enhver ved, at jeg er den hurtigste. Du kan ikke slå mig i en tidskørsel.
Alle vet at jeg er den raskeste. Dere vil aldri slå meg i tidsløpene.
And where there's video games, there's glitches. If you just so happen to not select any language upon booting up CTR's European version and just press triangle to cancel, the game starts in a glitched state with buggy text. It also completely freezes in some parts and gets rid of all cutscene dialogue. The best part about it though is that for some reason all bosses except Ripperoo switch heads for the cutscenes, so you get to marvel at severely obese Pinstripe, large head Oxide, suited up Komodo Joe, and alien Papu. It's believed that the language glitch state is actually a placeholder for the Japanese localization, which was still being finalized when the European version released. And now, some leftover scraps I found while combing through all the source material. The Greek manual describes Engine as a, quote, immigrant rocket scientist. What's up with that? TNT crates are TNT barrels in the French mask hints. Get your eyes checked. The German manual calls embryos beakers embryo speakers? Yeah, because his first name's Mitrus. This is a Danish warp celestial body. A little clunky there, Mr. Translator. And oh, hey, look! A localization missile. That's an alternate title for this very video. Now, there are more instances of text in CTR, like these weird-ass titles you get for your battle mode performance. There's no way I'm going through literally all of those in minute detail, but I'm sure you can find some fun things there. In the interest of time and sanity, I will also forego intricately analyzing all characters' in-game voice lines. Though apparently Japanese Oxide has 4 completely new lines. But maybe this is the point where you can pick up and see what you can find. Here, Red Flame Fox, Meower and Poguiro have started looking already. Time for you to piggyback off these and discuss your findings in the comments below. Man oh man, that was a tough one. CTR's localization accomplishes what it sets out to do, but it is most certainly a product of its time. With the CTR modding scene evolving more and more, maybe someone will pick up some of the manual content and create, I don't know, a Norwegian or Greek fan localization? Only time will tell.
Now I can finally continue my research for the conquering of the Earth. Maybe next time I'll shrink it down to the size of my fingers. Wait, you're still here? No, I have science things to do.